All right. G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of Malts with Mates. I'm Some Whiskey Bloke and today I'm joined by Alex Loudon of Glendree Distillery. Alex, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, Marcus. Thank you very much for having me on. The weather's a bit crap here. It's raining sideways, which is pretty typical for County Clare, but apart from that, all's good. And you?
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks so much for coming on. What are you drinking today, mate? What do you got?
I'm actually drinking a personal favourite, which would be Bullet Rye. Yeah, it's a bit atypical, I suppose, coming onto an Irish whiskey or a whiskey podcast and drinking bourbon, but it's something. I just finished a bottle of Redbreast 12, so I thought I'd change it up for a little bit. It's a personal favourite.
Oh, look, there's no shame in drinking a whiskey that you love. Personally, I'm sipping on a little bit of your Orla vodka at the moment. Single grain, just stunning stuff. So we'll get down to brass tacks. You're one of, if not the newest distillery in Ireland. Is that right?
Unless something has happened in the last 2 weeks that I haven't been made aware of, I'm pretty sure that's correct, yes.
Well, talk us through Glendree. Give us a little chat about it.
Well, I suppose Glendree geographically is a very small rural valley in East Clare, situated between two villages called Tulla and Feakle. So it's very rural. There's nothing within sort of 5 or 6 miles of here. And from an actual distillery point of view, I suppose what happened was my father and I, who's my business partner, we founded a brewery together 4 years ago with the long-term goal of setting up a distillery. And over the last 4 years, we've been doing a lot of work and development on licenses and that sort of thing to get us to this point where we're really happy that we officially launched our distillery 2 weeks ago, or thereabouts. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. How does it feel as well to have Ireland's newest distillery? Is that a little claim that you're going to hold on to for as long as you can?
We'll hold on to it for as long as we can, but I mean, given the current climate of Irish whiskey production, I don't know if it'll last too long. We were hoping to be the first in County Clare, but unfortunately we had to revise that to East Clare because Burn whiskey launched not too long ago in the west of Clare as well. But it feels good to be the new kids on the block. We're realizing that there's a lot of people and tasters that know an awful lot more about whiskey than we do, so we're hoping to learn as quickly as we can as we go.
Oh, fantastic. And I understand that distilling in East Clare, it's about 400 years, was it 1661? Yeah. And that was a tax that was brought in that stopped it.
It was indeed. So it was a tax brought in by Charles II, by the British at the time when Ireland was under British rule, to sort of fund his rise in the monarchy. And then also I think there was a certain element of jealousy about how delicious and the quantity of production of Irish whiskey was going on at the time. So by introducing a tax, they hoped to curtail that as quickly as possible. And in terms of legal whiskey production, it was incredibly successful. But in terms of illegal whiskey production, it was a catastrophic failure.
No, that is something. And did that tax stand until this day? Did you guys have to fight any taxes or any regulations when you were attempting to open your distillery?
Well, there's a huge amount of taxing and regulation involved, but fortunately the tax by the British on Irish whiskey production no longer exists. I think there would be a significant consternation by all parties if that was still existing. But yeah, there's plenty. As a small whiskey distiller, there's a huge amount of regulation involved in the process. And I think, as I said, why it took us so long and why we started the brewery was because that process takes a long time. You need to work with a lot of people in order to get the licenses to produce whiskey. And it's actually harder as a smaller producer because, I mean, written in the regulations, if you're producing above a certain amount, which is a huge amount, you don't have to go through as many of the you don't have to go through as much red tape in order to release a distillery, which is understandable in some respects, but it makes it very hard to set up a new distillery in Ireland.
Okay. So you said before you had the distillery, you had the brewery. Could you tell us a bit about that brewery as well?
So the brewery was again set up by my father and I. So Loudon is our last name. It's a Scottish name, funnily enough. And it was Loudens Brewery. And when we wanted to, I suppose the whole idea behind the distillery was previously my father and I were working in different careers. I was finishing up a PhD in chemistry in Dublin, and he was working in mining in South Africa, and we really wanted to move back to our family home in Clare, but obviously we needed some way to make a living at the same time. So we both really enjoyed beer and whiskey, so over quite a few nights of deliberations and libations, we started getting this idea together of maybe there's something alcohol related we could do. And by pure serendipity, South Africa, where my father was working, ended up being one of only 2 countries in the world where it's legal to distill for personal consumption. I think it's South Africa and distilleries. So like any sane person, given the legal opportunity to produce spirits, he thought he'd give it a go. And that sort of started putting the manufacturing side together, that we could actually do this. He bought a still and he did some courses, and that I sort of applied my chemistry knowledge on top of that, and we got really excited. But when we brought this plan to come home to Ireland to set up the distillery, we started learning about how it's quite a complex process, and the brewing process by comparison isn't as difficult. And we were chatting to a load of local publicans and that sort of stuff, and they said there was a real thirst for local beer. So it became a very logical decision for us, I think, to start by producing beer while we were getting everything together for the distilling. And I mean, brewing, arguably from our point of view, is a huge part of distilling. I mean, when you get to barrel aging spirits, you introduce an extra level of complexity, but for making neutral spirits, most of the flavor is generated in the mashing and the fermentation, and distillation is just a separation technique on top of that. So we thought it made a lot of sense to focus really heavily on the fermentation and the mashing, or becoming brewers, I suppose. So we decided to set up our brewery. And yeah, so that's sort of where the brewery came from, was to learn about the process, and we knew it would help us in the long term as distillers as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you said that you were finishing your master's in chemistry at Dublin. When you initially started that master's, did you always intend to become a brewer or a distiller?
So absolutely not, to be perfectly honest. I didn't. I finished up my undergraduate in chemistry maybe 2013, I think, and at that point, it's a pretty natural progression to go from an undergraduate into a doctoral PhD course in chemistry. So I was very, very fortunate that I got the opportunity to go into doing that PhD course, which was 4 years. But by about year 3, I started to realize that you need to find a job afterwards, and brewing and distilling wasn't even on the radar, despite, I mean, in retrospect, it's ridiculous because I enjoyed alcohol, not from a volume point of view, but just got really excited about the sheer variety of different spirits and alcohols out there, that it was my father that actually came to me first with the idea of producing alcohol. So I was very relieved, because the alternatives were to go into industry or pharmaceuticals or something like that. So to be told there's a potential opportunity in making alcohol and beer and spirits, then yes, we jumped on that opportunity as quickly as possible. But before that, the PhD was very unrelated. I must say, though, that a lot of the skills are highly transferable from I consider myself much more on the production side of the brewing and distilling stuff, so a lot of the skills were very helpful. I used to do a lot of distillation, not of alcohol, but of other materials, and then so a lot of the health and safety as well. There's a lot of health and safety regulations involved in brewing and distilling. I mean, for obvious reasons, you're making an explosive material. So the skills were highly transferable, but at the time, no. There's absolutely no indication that was the long-term prospect.
All right, interesting. So can you walk us a little bit through your distillery, what you've got, the kind of setup that you have?
So our distillery is, we don't have pot stills. We have a hybrid still. It's 1,500 liters, so it's about 1,200 liters of usable volume, and it has 3 columns. We have a 4-plate column, which we'll be using for a lot of our whiskey production. We have a 16-plate column for doing all our neutral spirits, so Orla, our vodka, and then we have a ginning basket as well. And so that's our still, but it's actually only the most recent addition to the facility, because we were working as a brewery for last few years. So fortunately, I mean, we've been building up fermenters, and we've got our mash tun for many years now at this stage. It's all copper, and it looks beautiful, and we're really, really proud of it. And I think distilleries just are a very aesthetically pleasing environment, I suppose, compared to the breweries, because the amount of copper in a lot of them just looks really, really cool. So that's why we built the distillery. It's about 100 meters from my front door, which is quite convenient. So the commute is about 20 seconds. I still drive sometimes if it's raining. And yeah, so it's great. It's on our family farm, and we really like that it's in the middle of the nowhere. It's sort of secluded. It's not great for tourists because, I mean, if they can find it, we're very, very happy to give them a tour and tastings, because we feel it's a bit of an arduous task to find where we are. But it's our family facility. Yeah, and I mean, if we were going to upscale, we might move somewhere else, but that's not the plan for the moment. We're very happy where we are, and we're going to phase out the brewing and focus more on distilling. And if we move out some of the fermenters from the brewing, we can fit quite a significant amount of barrels. I mean, compared to our still production capacity, we're not going anywhere for quite a long time. So it's exciting.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so with all that set up with the existing brewery that you've got there and the distillery, you're controlling pretty much everything, right? Are you making your own wash?
We're 100%. Yeah, it was something that we felt really strongly about, that in a world where there's a lot of whiskey that's being produced, and it's being produced under different names, etc., which is absolutely nothing wrong with that at all, but we just felt that we had such expertise in the wash and from the grain to glass experience, that we're doing the whole thing from start to finish. So we're getting our grain in Ireland from a variety of suppliers, and then we're making our own wash and distilling it, and we plan to barrel and age it in our own facility as well. It was just something that our background is in grain selection and fermentation from the brewing, and what we have to learn is barrel aging and barrel selection, so that's a new part of the industry for us. So we thought we might as well focus on what we know well and control it as best we can. So by making our own wash, fermenting on site, and all that sort of stuff, it gives us great control, because we're working on the principle that if we put good stuff into the still, like our wash is tasty, good stuff should come out of the still. And it also means that maybe we're not relying on barrels to clean up our spirits as much, because we can't compete with 15, 20-year-olds. Even the Redbreast 12, which is probably one of my favorite whiskeys, has 12 years on us when we only launched 2 weeks ago. So by focusing on trying to make sort of higher quality washes, now it might necessarily work if we're trying to make 1,000 barrels at a time, but our facility is very much set up. We can make 1 barrel of whiskey per run, so it gives us complete control on what we're trying to do. And so yeah, everything is done in-house for a grain to glass experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. And also on your website, you state that you harvest rainwater.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that works. Can you walk us through that?
It was a decision that was made very back at the start, I suppose, because when we were coming up with the concept of the brewery, it was raining all the time when we were having these meetings, so it was in the background. But I think that sustainability is something that the brewing and distilling industries can be at the forefront of. They're already quite circular in terms of the grain comes in and the grain goes out to local farmers and that sort of stuff a lot of the time. So, but we felt that there's an opportunity to do more there as well. And so the rainwater, we had to find water from somewhere, and the groundwater around where we live is incredibly hard. We tried using it just for some testing, and it just lime-scaled up all our equipment straight away. It's disastrously hard from a production point of view. And we just realized that, I suppose, Glendree, where we are in East Clare, there is a near infinite supply of rainwater. So it's sort of it became a logical decision to try and see if we can use that rainwater for our production. So from a purely sort of technical point of view, it's a very simple process. The rainwater is collected off the roof of our facility, and then we pass it through 2 or 3 different filters of different finenesses just to remove particulate matter, and then it passes over a UV light to sterilize it afterwards. So the actual process is very simple. The production side is very simple. it took a while to get it sort of up to make the health and safety authorities completely okay with it, because it's something they haven't seen before. But when we actually looked at the water profiles, they were amazed. I mean, unsurprisingly, from a chemical point of view, that it was super soft. Not to be overly corny, but you could say it's distilled by nature, which it sort of is. I mean, if it's being evaporated and distilled back down. But it's super, super soft, and it gave us a really good baseline for our production, because from a beer point of view, we love making pilsners and lagers, which require a very soft water profile because they're very clean, crisp beers. And from a spirit point of view, it produces great spirits. I mean, if you're making a 40% spirit, 60% of the rest of it is water. So it was important that the water tasted good, and we're really, really happy with it. And I mean, as I said before, well, I don't know, I'm live on the podcast, but my family are Australian, and you're from Australia. And just watching the fires over the past 6 months, I think it's fair to assume that there's climate issues in the world. And I think that we sort of have a corporate responsibility to be at the forefront of that, and we're trying to do our bit. While it might make a massive impact compared to people producing millions of barrels, I think it sets a strong message that we can do more to sustainably distill and produce delicious whiskeys.
No, I think you're completely right there. You've got people have corporate and also moral responsibility with, with the fires that have burnt through Australia and through other parts of the world recently, and everything that's happening. We do have a responsibility to try and take care of things. So with you guys doing that, thank you very much for doing that. It's fantastic. And I'm talking for myself here, but I'm sure I can speak for everyone else, where we look forward to see what you make with that.
Thank you.
So you also mentioned earlier your still Orla. So where does that name Orla come from?
So the name Orla comes from, we wanted to sort of build a story or an identity for the distillery. And we felt it was most appropriate to sort of build that identity around the still. And we wanted a name for it. And we weren't really interested, nor did we have the marketing budgets to build an entire pseudo-history or marketing world behind what we're doing. So we wanted to keep it quite simple in our messaging. And Orla is the name of our still. And the name Orla, we wanted an Irish name because we're making Irish spirits. We also, though, we ran into a problem that if we want to export to the American market, we felt it was important to have an Irish name that's phonetically spelt, because the vast majority of Irish names would be bastardized. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear or not. I assume I can on this, within reason.
You can swear. Yeah, don't worry about
it. A lot of the Irish names that we're looking at would be butchered by people that don't understand Irish pronunciation. So we started going through a lot of Irish names, and the DHs and the BHs and the MHs were never going to work. So we settled on Orla because, I mean, it's really, really hard to mess up Orla from a pronunciation point of view. We really liked the name, and so Orla became the name of our still. And then off the back of that, we dedicated our first spirit, our single grain vodka, after our still. So that's where the Orla name came from. It's just we really wanted an identity for the distillery, and we felt that the heart of the distillery is the still, and it's such a beautiful piece of equipment. If you go onto our website, I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, copper stills in general just look gorgeous. And when we got it into our facility, we were just so giddy and excited by how pretty the whole thing looked. It was so shiny. It's never going to be as shiny as it was when it first arrived, because I don't really want to put up a safety harness and have to climb up 20 feet in the air to polish copper as very often. But that's where Orla came from. We really wanted the identity of the distillery, and then the name was an Irish name. And it's interesting, I suppose the actual Orla name itself, it translates as Golden Princess. And that was, if you look at a copper still, and we can actually roll up the shutters of the doors behind the still, and the sun comes in from the back, and it really gives off this really beautiful golden hue. So the Golden Princess was the translation, but you have to be very careful, because if you remove the accent or the fodder from the O, Orla translates as vomit in Irish. So it's one of these things which you hear these stories about spirits and alcohol brands where they haven't thought about how it translates into foreign languages, but we had to be very careful to make sure it's correct. So Golden
Yeah.
Princess is Isla, and that's the definition that we're going to focus on, and that's how it's spelled.
No, that's a fantastic story and a fantastic name. I should point out, yeah, feel free to swear on this. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's fine. Everyone is watching this is going to be drinking whiskey anyway, so it's all good. And then as well, following that, where did you get that still manufactured? And as someone who's got a background in chemistry, did you have any input on the manufacturing, on the design of it?
So, funnily enough, my father actually has a background in engineering, so he was much more instrumental in the development of the still. We actually got it developed in China, but it was with a manufacturer that we've worked with for many years. And I think China people have mixed feelings about it, because obviously you can get very poor quality stuff, but if you work with the right people, you can also get really high quality material. And we worked with these guys for nearly 6 months or a year designing the still. Sorry, my dog is going mad here. I'm just going to have to let her out. Just 2 seconds.
No, that's fine. That's fine, mate.
So it was one of the manufacturers that we've been working with a long time. And my father worked with them a lot, and then also we have all of our electricians and that sort of guys on this side to make sure. But we were lucky that we knew our long-term plan was to make a distillery. So even though we started with a brewery, our entire building was built as a distillery in terms of the wiring and the height of the building, because the requirements for the still are quite tall. So fortunately, everything worked out well, and we have about 10 centimeters of clearance between our full neutral column and the top of the building. We've been looking at other people that have built like clock towers and that sort of stuff to sit the top four plates of their column in. So that was my father, and he's designed, to his credit, he designed all of our own all of our equipment is bespoke. Even all of our brewing equipment is bespoke. We have quite a unique mashing system in that when we started this whole process, we knew that I was finishing my PhD, so he was going to have to work on it on his own. And I think unless you get to a really large scale, one of the most annoying things in a brewery or distillery is shoveling hot grain. Because if you put 200 kilos of barley into a still, it's going to weigh nearly 350 kilos coming out of it by the end of it. So someone's got to shovel that out of the still and put it in a wheelbarrow and take it off. So he designed our mash tun to effectively be a really upscale version of a brew-in-the-bag system, where there's a second basket that sits inside our mash tun where we put all our grain in, and then afterwards we can actually remove the grain and all of the wash drains out and that sort of thing, and it's all on an I-beam and pulley system that goes off to the side and tips on its side straight into the farmer's boxes to take away. So I mean, I'm very fortunate that my input in the design of the equipment was minimal by comparison to my father's, because it wouldn't look anywhere near as efficient as it does now. But yeah, so that's about it. We really wanted to squeeze the 16 plates out of it for the neutral, and we got it with about 10 centimeters to spare.
Oh, that is fantastic. And of course, you're making hand sanitizer at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea how it's manufactured, but right now it's a precious commodity. Can you walk us through the manufacturing of hand sanitizer at all?
Yeah, it sort of depends. It's interesting because it's taken up far more of my time than I thought it would. Because I think we spoke about this beforehand, but my father is my partner, and he's actually stuck in Australia right now with his grandparents, so I'm here on my own. So it's, in terms of whiskey production, that sort of thing, we're sort of curtailing that to focus on hand sanitizer. But from a production point of view, the hand sanitizer, in its simplest form, the World Health Organization issued guidelines on how to make it, and they want about 75% ethanol, and then water, and then it's very important to have glycerol or glycerin in there, which is the moisturizer. So what we're making currently in our own facility is bare bones hand sanitizer, but it was very much done out of a response to an emergency. It's not a long-term luxury product that we're currently producing. And I just have to shout out Nick Ryan from Tomangate Whiskey in Limerick as well. He was he actually came to us. We've been talking a lot to him, and he came to us and told us, you know, we should be getting on that, and he helped us a lot with the legislation, because unfortunately the law doesn't differentiate between giving out hand sanitizer for free and releasing a biocide onto the market. So you have to go through all of the traditional channels to get it done, which is fine. And so between ourselves and Nick Ryan, we've produced quite a bit of hand sanitizer. And this isn't really, our own hand sanitizer wasn't a commercial venture. We've actually just been donating it to local emergency services, so the sort of HSE, the hospitals, and the Gardaí between Clare and Limerick. And so that's liquid hand sanitizer, which is a very easy thing to produce. But going forward for actual commercial production, if people want to get into it, gel sanitizer seems to be far more important. If we want to start opening up our restaurants and that sort of stuff, gel is better because it's not a slip hazard. So we've been talking to a lot of people that they would like a gel, but gels are a lot harder to produce because you need to be able to heat them up and that sort of stuff. And heating up huge amounts of gels at 76% alcohol and that sort of stuff is not something that distilleries are fully set up for. So, but we have actually, fortunately, just from our background, we've partnered with a producer in the UK who's now producing gel sanitizer using our formulations and that sort of stuff. So we are going into hand sanitizer production and distribution, but we currently aren't set up to do it at the scale that is currently required because, I mean, everyone needs hand sanitizer these days. I think in a post-COVID society, it's going to be rare enough to find people that don't have a little 100ml bottle in their bag or whatever. So it's been a great experience working and trying to help people and that sort of thing. And I think just currently with what's going on, we're all in this together, and the more we work together, the sooner we can get back to a world where we can go to the pub and enjoy a dram of whiskey as a group of friends.
Yeah, and we gotta work together to do that, as you say. But you know, a huge thanks to you for, you know, seeing that responsibility and making that sanitizer for your local health and safety departments, for the HSE, for everyone, because I'm sure they really appreciate that. So, you know, we thank you a lot for that. That's fantastic to hear that you've done that.
Thank you very much.
So once all of this is done, once COVID-19 is past, when you're starting to distill your whiskey and lay it down in barrels, could you tell us what we might expect from Glendree, or are you keeping a tight lid on that at the moment?
No, we're very happy to discuss what we're going to do. I think the more we talk about it, the more help we're going to get in doing it. So there's no need in keeping secrets. I suppose there's a few distilleries that we really like what they do. One of them would be like Corsair over in the States, who have sort of built their brand around making small batch whiskies from alternative mash bills and that sort of stuff. There's such an incredible amount of really, really good Irish whiskey on the market right now that our priority isn't to try and compete with that sort of product head on. In fact, a lot of what we're planning, it won't come under the Irish whiskey moniker from a technical file point of view. So we want to make alternative whiskies. We sort of have three whiskies that we really want to work on. And so the first one is, I suppose, from drinking Bullet Rye, is we really want to make a rye whiskey. We've been reading loads about it and working with, my father was actually over in the Corsair distillery a while ago chatting to these guys about making rye whiskies. And it's very different to Irish whiskies, you know, they're very spicy and that sort of stuff. But what we want to do is try and sort of open up a discussion about variety in whiskey produced in Ireland, as opposed to Irish whiskey, which is quite a specific thing, I suppose. But so that would be our rye whiskey.
Sorry, Alex. I think we'd lost you here.
We plan on. Okay.
Apologies, we lost you for about 10 seconds there. Sorry about that, mate.
No, you're okay. You're okay. So that's we want to make a rye whiskey. It's probably going to be about a 50% rye, mash, and then presumably aged in fresh char American oak to begin with. And then a second whiskey, we want to make just a really classic wheat whiskey. So we've been drinking some really tasty wheat whiskies. Again, actually from the States, because there's not really any pure wheat whiskey being produced in Ireland. Irish production seems to focus on Irish whiskey. I mean, unsurprisingly, that's totally fair. And then we're going to produce a single malt as well. But we'd love to introduce a certain element of peaty smokiness into it. There's nothing on the scale of, I think you said you used to work in Scotland, nothing on the scale of the Scottish level of peatedness, but certainly more than you would see in most traditional Irish whiskies. So I've been really enjoying a lot of Japanese whiskies, which seem to take a lot of them take quite a reserved attitude towards peating their whiskies. And so we look at, and then combining that with our brewing background, we really, really used to like making stouts and drinking stouts. I mean, most Irish people would at least know one or two good stouts. So, and you can find a lot of really nice malts that fit into a chocolatey, stouty malt bill, which should hopefully transfer over to some really nice whiskies as well. So we're hoping to make a peated single malts as well. So the three of them, they're all not really in the traditional space of Irish whiskey. But like I said, there's so many people making incredible Irish whiskey at the moment that we felt it was more valuable and more interesting to us to try and introduce a level of variety. And in order to do that, we're also looking for people to work with us as well. I mean, we're really focused on the mashing, the fermentation, and the distilling. And we know there's other people out there which are really, really good at barrel selection. And so, like the guys, JJ Corey, Chapel Gate, out in West Clare, they're doing some amazing stuff at the moment. And we've been chatting to Eric, who works with them, and I think we can possibly do some amazing collaborations with those guys. So we're learning the barrel side of it, but we're really, really happy with our control on the mashing and the distilling and that sort of stuff. So it's gonna be a while before we can release anything because we're not buying in any spirit to sell in the meantime. So it'll be at least 3 years before you see our whiskies on the shelf. But we're really, really proud of Orla, our vodka, and it was the only vodka in Ireland to win an IWSC award last year. So we're going to focus on that as well. You know, vodka isn't an afterthought for us. We're very focused on our single grain unfiltered spirits as well. So the whiskey is the long term, and it's very much the plan. But it'll take us a while to get there, I think.
Oh, that's fantastic, and we look forward to seeing it. And also, congratulations on that medal you won from the IWSC. That's fantastic to hear that you won that.
Yeah, thanks very much.
So, right now as well, as you're quite new, will you be participating in any of the virtual festivals coming along, or is that going to have to take a back seat while the crisis is here?
I think unless people want to do tasting notes on hand sanitizer, it'll probably have to wait a while. I think none of our spirits are on the market yet. They're all unreleased, and so they're not available for the consumer at the moment. I'll most certainly be participating as a guest, not as a guest, but just as a normal person. I want to see what's going on. I want to hear what everyone is up to and that sort of thing. And I think it's really interesting to see what people are doing in a sort of lockdown situation. So I'll be participating, but not as Alex Loudon of Glendree Distillery, but just as one of many customers.
Ah, it's fantastic. And in what way can the whiskey community support you and support whiskey at this time?
I think my perspective on this is I can't really speak as a member of the whiskey community so much yet, but I can speak as a member of, I suppose, society and a member of producing hand sanitizer, that if we want whiskey to continue to grow and be the incredible thing that it can be, then the best thing we can do is do our best to help society get back to normal. In order to do that, I think people need to, I know it's probably a slightly more somber answer to your question, but if people just do their best with their isolation and their social distancing, then the more we behave, even though it's tough now, the sooner we can all get back to this incredible Irish whiskey market that's growing. So I can't really speak too much from a whiskey perspective, but from someone who wants to go and drink whiskey in the pub and produce it and sell it and share it, the more we can do as good citizens, the faster we can get back to that sort of position. So that's a bit of a strange answer, I'm sure, but
no, that's a perfectly reasonable answer, and it makes a lot of sense. So, as you know as well, and as regular viewers will know, we always finish with a little bit of a quiz. And we've done sports, we've done distilling, we've done history. Everything aside from the whiskey question has been a flop. So I've just kind of scaled it back to just whiskey questions. So I've got a few whiskey questions here that I'm going to ask you. And anyone who's watching at home, feel free to join in, and we'll have a good time and a good laugh with it. So
I'm just going to prefix this by saying that my whiskey knowledge is going to be disastrously poor compared to most of your viewers. But we'll see how it goes.
Across the... No, you'll do great. So there was a disaster in 1863 that decimated the cognac industry. Do you know what that was?
I don't know, but I can sort of try and work backwards as an educated guess. I mean, if I had to say, one guess would be a great fire in one of the main manufacturers, but that mightn't be it. Was it botrytis or something? Did it have something to do with the
You're on the right track with
I gotta expose so brandy being made from wine grape. It had to be something that decimated the grape population, would be a guess of mine. So it wasn't botrytis, but there was something that wiped out nearly all of the grape varieties around that time, wasn't there? I can't give you the specifics, but that's gonna be my close approximation of what I think.
No, I'm gonna give you that. So this was a woodlouse called, I have the scientific name here. It's Phylloxera vastratrix. Phylloxera vastratrix. Say that after 6 drinks, It's a little woodlouse, and as far as I understand, it thrived in the New World in America. And when American vines and plants were brought back to Europe, this little woodlouse burrowed into the cognac vines, into the European vines, and absolutely decimated the industry, helping whiskey to really take a step forward and become the huge thing it is today. Without that, who knows? Cognac could still be one of the biggest products in the world, or bigger than whiskey.
Okay, it's good to know.
Fun little questions. Do you know what is white dog?
Oh, fortunately, white dog. Yeah, I do. White dog would be white spirit before you put it in the barrel. Because up until this point, all I've had to work on is white dog and drinking other people's white dog. It's amazing though. I didn't realize you can call up pretty much any distillery and ask them for white dog. A lot of them sell it commercially as well. It's not there's a reason people put it in barrels. It tastes a lot better afterwards. But I quite like some new make spirit sometimes, not always, but I've had some that are really good, and I've had others that have been shit. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. It's from a tasting point of view, to taste white dog spirit and then to taste the finished product to see how it evolves over time. And I think it's fast. Certainly from a production point of view, to learn where spirit starts its journey is arguably, from the point of someone who's interested in brewing and distilling, is nearly more important, because it's all well and good to taste a finished spirit, but it's very hard to know how to get to that point. So drinking lots of really nasty white dog has been prominent in the last 12 months of my father's lives.
You got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah.
So, last question there before we head on to the anagrams. Angel Share leaves behind something which has helped excisemen in the past. Do you know what Angel Share leaves behind?
Okay, so Angel Share being the alcohol evaporation from the barrels over time. What it would leave behind, well, I suppose it leaves behind water. Is that sort of what you're getting at, or is there? I don't.
There's a distinctive product that Angel Share leaves behind. That.
Oh, geez, I couldn't tell you. I think your chat might have a better answer for me at that stage.
Not so. Angel Share leaves behind a fungus.
Ah, okay. No idea.
Well, if you go to a distillery and you see some maturation warehouses, you'll see the black fungus growing all over it.
Okay.
And that's a little fungus that thrives off the ethanol and the Angel Share, and really helps it to grow. I do not know the technical science name for it, but it's fascinating that even somewhere there's something that's going, oh yeah, we're going to take some of this alcohol.
I've never heard of that before. So do you see that in a lot of the distilleries that you've worked in or visited?
Yeah, I've seen it in a few. And there was actually, funnily enough, there was a court case in Scotland, I think it was last year, where some houses that were near distilleries, their fences and potentially some of their walls had actually had some of the fungus growing on the outside because they were close enough to the distillery for a certain number of years. I think they sued the distillery, or they sued the corporation. Not sure what happened, but quite interesting.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. So we'll be trying to cultivate it as quickly as we can.
So we'll head on to the anagrams here, and I've got 5 little anagrams. All of them are Irish whiskies, all Irish whiskey brands, and I'll type in the anagram and tell me what you think. Okay. So the first anagram we have is Asked Bird.
Oh, I apologize in advance to any whiskey producers, but I think I actually know this one, fortunately, because my girlfriend bought me a bottle of it a few weeks ago for my birthday. Would it be Redbreast?
It's Redbreast, yeah. Oh, I quite like Redbreast. I think it's a grand whiskey. I realized it was an anagram for Asked Bird. So.
I mean, you took your opportunity.
Oh, you do everything you can. So, the next one I've got here is not loading at all, because apparently my computer thinks that I've just typed in spam, so I'll go to option number 2.
You can read it out if you want, and I can, or we can, whatever suits.
Well, I came prepared for this because this is a serious show.
Till
Demon.
Oh, okay. Oh.
The word is Till Demon.
I think it's a. I'm pretty sure I have it, and I suppose as a small scale producer, it's one of the more intimidating producers out there. But would it be Middleton?
It is Middleton, yeah. All right. I like that one because it also works thematically. Middleton is it's not the cheapest of whiskeys.
Very much so. I was doing a tasting or some training with some Middleton Very Rare recently. Jesus, it's incredibly tasty whiskey.
Oh, it's tasty stuff. I hate to say it, but I do quite like heading through UK duty frees because they always seem to have older Middleton Very Rares at really cheap prices, and it's great to do it because you can crack open a bottle and it's like, yep, I've saved myself €200. This trip to Scotland has got me a lot of whiskey. So, our next anagram, evil in Chile.
I'm just typing these down so you don't have to hold it up. Evil in Chile.
Evil in Chile.
I'm gonna work that there's generally some form of thematic level of involvement in them as well. So, evil in Chile. No, I had nothing springing to mind. Let me just see. I'm gonna get crucified by them for the one guys I don't get. I don't. Is chat? Is there any?
If you're just watching, the anagram is evil in Chile.
The bullet rye isn't helping too much at this stage as well, so. I mean, ending in "ville" would make sense to me, but.
I'm including Northern Ireland in these anagrams.
Right,
they're all from, yeah.
Is there a distillery called Eckernville or something like that?
You're completely correct. It's Eckernville Distillery from Northern Ireland.
Thanks for your help.
Hey, you're doing fantastic. Yes, Dave, you are completely allowed to guess. By all means, this is a fun little guessing game. You guys can guess. It's all good, mate. Don't worry.
I can do it.
To recap, we had Asked Bert, that was Redbreast, Till Demon, that was Middleton, and Evil in Chile, that was Eckernville. I'm very proud of that one for some reason.
They're good. You've managed to make them grammatically correct as well, to a certain point.
To a certain extent.
Arspert might be in the Oxford Dictionary, but...
Arspert will definitely be somewhere. So, Dave was shouting Eckernville.
Thanks, Dave. You got my back.
So, the next one we have, Angled Ghoul.
Angled Ghoul. Okay, I'm just going to type this down.
These are all Irish distilleries and brands. Angled Ghoul.
I'm sure Dave is probably far ahead of me on the curve on this one. Angled Ghoul. Okay. So nothing is shooting out. So we're going to go through the arduous process of a slow, educated guess. I figured this one out, and they're a personal favorite distillery of mine as well. But I suppose possibly if chat wants to give it a go before I shout out my answer, but.
Well, apparently Dave is all over it, he's saying. So Dave, what do you think it is?
I hope Dave and I are correct that it's Glendalough, if my spelling is correct.
It is Glendalough. You're completely correct there. Glendalough, and Dave got it as well. Glendalough.
Excellent.
Glendalough it is.
A great distillery.
Great distillery, great whiskey, fantastic guys as well, really.
I'm very excited.
I like that about Irish whiskey. The guys are just all great to talk to, They just want to chat about booze. It's fantastic.
It certainly helps that you can discuss your product while also imbibing in it at the same time. But I'm super excited to get to meet all of the other distillers, because up until this point I've sort of just been working with brewers. So I'm sure there's a lot of bearded whiskey distillers out there to chat to.
I should point out, normally I don't have a beard. I left the charger for my razor in Belgium, so currently I'm growing.
You've got a pretty good haircut for COVID-19 situation.
I did that myself. I gave myself a mohawk. and took all of that off. And as I did the final strip, the razor died. It would have been really bad if I had just done the first and it had died.
Yeah. It's good. The fade is good. My girlfriend's trying to cut my hair, but I'm not. I'm on the fence. We'll see.
All right. So our second last one, our penultimate. This is an Irish brand.
Mm-hmm.
Tack Warble.
Okay. Tack Warble.
Tack Warble.
Sorry, I've got a second monitor here. That's why I'm not looking at the camera.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Tack Warble.
Yes.
Again, nothing is shooting out straight away, but Tack Warble. I must add as well that my girlfriend has done a lot of marketing work with a lot of these brands. I'm gonna be in trouble if I miss one that she's worked on. Tack Warble. I'm gonna guess that the CK stays together. Just again, apologies to the viewers. It's going to be a bit of a drawn-out experience while the rest of you scream at me.
Don't worry. I'm sure they're all playing along at home. Dave Ock 1980. I'm sure he's got this. Seems like a smart chap.
Yeah. So you said it's a brand, so I think maybe it's fair to assume that this one mightn't be a distillery.
This could be a brand, a distillery. They definitely have a gin. I can tell you that much.
I do know these guys. Not personally, but I'm an avid follower of the blogs and the furor that Twitter tends to go up about when discussing technical files and that sort of thing. Is it Blackwater?
It's Blackwater, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I haven't met the guys, but I've drank some of their delicious spirits, and I'm an avid follower of their blog. So.
Well, I think you did fantastically on that one. All right. Now, our last one. How organized am I that I even have a text?
It's very impressive. You've got your own studio set up and everything as well, with the nice bottles on the back shelf, just very nicely placed. Over your other shoulder.
You know, they're looking quite empty, those bottles. Yeah, and this is Dave's Irish whiskey. Oh, he's coming up as an old log-on. This is Dave's Irish Whiskey. Dave can help introduce you to anyone and everyone. And Dave, we hope you're enjoying the anagrams, and we hope you've enjoyed the chat here with Alex. We have our final anagram. Legend. I like to think if you imagine, this could say legendary. Legendary. Or legendary.
I think you should trademark that before it's stolen from under your nose as well. So one of the tougher ones that I've gotten this evening, but I think I know it. I'm good authority that they're just released. So maybe I'm gonna go with Glendree Distillery on this one.
It is Glendree Distillery. That is yours. It took me a while, and I realized that says legendary. That says legendary. Yeah. I'm very proud of that one. So you can take that and copyright it, do whatever you like.
We'll be sure to put you we'll notarize you in the bottom of it.
Oh, I don't care. Just as long as you just keep making good stuff. Anyway, that's all the time we have today. But Alex, it was fantastic to have you on. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks so much for sharing all the information with us. we'll be sure that we follow Glendree Distillery and keep up to date with what you're doing, because we're all really excited to see what you'll do in the future. Is there anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
I suppose I just want to use this opportunity to introduce ourselves, and I think we've done that through today, in that anyone that wants to talk whiskey or spirits or production or anything, please feel free to give me a call, because I love learning, and I know that there's a lot of people that know an awful lot more about whiskey than we do, and it's a new and exciting world for us. And so please get in contact. We really want to focus on a collaborative approach to whiskey production in Ireland. And so anyone with ideas or just any discussions, please give us a call. I suppose you can get us on our Facebook, just Glendree Distillery, or our Twitter is Glendree Distill. I think they cut that short, so just Glendree, Glendree Distil, or our Instagram. So please get in contact, and I really look forward to releasing our products and sharing them with the Irish market and the export market. You'll have to wait a bit longer for our whiskies, but we'll keep you updated as much as we can. And thank you so much for hosting this. It's been fantastic.
No, thank you for coming on, and everyone who's watching right now and in the future, everyone, please check out Glendree Distillery. Make sure you drop Alex a line and ask him all the questions you can. It's been fantastic to have you on. I've been some whiskey bloke. This has been Alex Loudens from Glendree Distillery. Slange, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you, Alex.
Cheers.